We are going to move the show forward here, turning our attention to Brazil, where Latin America's largest social movement, the Landless Workers Movement of Brazil, is this year celebrating 40 years of existence. And we are very honored to be joined as we continue the show by Ana Cha, who is a member of the MST's National Coordination. Ana, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Eugene and Rania, for the invitation to be here and could talk a little bit about MST and Brazil.
Well, we really appreciate you being willing to join us. And, I mentioned it at the outset, Latin America's largest social movement. But for those who maybe don't know, aren't as familiar with Brazil, what is the MST and what is it fighting for?
Okay, well, first, maybe it's important to say that Brazil, even nowadays, it's one of the countries with the highest land concentration. So around 1% of the big landowners own more than 50% of all lands in Brazil. So the land issue in Brazil since the invasion of the Portuguese, it's like one of the most structural issues of the Brazilian society, which until nowadays promotes highest inequality, misery, hunger, all social problems that we can see on the Brazilian society. And MST is a social movement that struggles for the democratization of the land, but also to build a political project of Brazil that ends with that inequality that I was talking, that ends with more than 33 million people in Brazil are still suffering nowadays. So MST, born 40 years ago, struggling against these large states of land, which were unproductive, but has made all our struggle to not just have access to land to the people who don't have land, but also to create a good life in the countryside of Brazil, and of course producing food, healthy food for all the society. So our struggle is not just for the landless people of Brazil, but we really believe that we have a lot to contribute to make Brazil a better country to all the Brazilians.
Rania, you're muted.
My apologies. I was turning the heater. I used to do this. Eugene knows. Anyways, I didn't want you guys to hear the beeping. But no, I really think it's incredible what your movement has been able to accomplish. And I'm just curious right now, what's at the sort of forefront, especially, obviously Bolsonaro was in power. That was a huge threat to Brazil. Now you have Lula in charge. I guess, how have things changed, or have they changed? Are you still fighting for the same things? Because obviously there's a bigger system at play than just one person being in power.
Yes, well, of course, for us, it was a big victory to took off Bolsonaro from being president. And of course, electing Lula again, it opened a new perspective for the struggles in Brazil, not just for the landless, but in general for the society and especially the left-wing parties and organizations. But yes, we still need to advance much more than we have on this first year. The situation of agrarian reform in terms of numbers, it's almost the same that in the beginning of the Lula's term, this new term of Lula's government. So, of course, there was very structural problems in the way that the public institutions were organized, because Bolsonaro, one of the ways of action was to destroy all these public institutions that were supposed to make the agrarian reform and to solve the land concentration problem in Brazil. So this year, it was a year also to reorganize all the structure of the government related with the land issues. But we know that it's not just that. The thing is that we don't have a very significant budget for solving the question of agrarian reform. We know that agribusiness is like one of the highest powers in Brazilian society. So they have a lot of political powers. They have a lot of ideological power with all the propaganda they made in media. So for us, the land issue is still a very central one for Brazilian society, and we are still hoping that Lula's government could advance much more. We are MST organized around 450,000 families who have already their land and are producing food in their lands. But we still have around 65,000 families who are still waiting for having a piece of land so they can live and produce food and produce their survival. So yes, we are still waiting a more energetic action from part of the government.
You know, Anna, I'm really glad you mentioned the issue of the power of agribusiness, because I know one of the big issues MST has had to face is these big agribusiness companies using, you know, thugs basically to come and to attack the encampments and even sometimes kill people. Is this something that you're still facing as the struggle continues here now, 40 years on?
Yes, of course. And even in this last year, we have seen the violence just growing a lot against landless people, but also against indigenous people and against what we call quilombos, which are black communities in the countryside who have a historical organization of poor people and black people. So in this last year, we have seen a lot of cases of violence, including murdering of indigenous leaderships and quilombolas also. So we are very worried about this because during Bolsonaro's government, guns were somehow liberated much more. And one of the groups that really took guns to somehow, they say self-defense, but we know it's not just that, it's property defense, were the landowners and were the big companies also of the agribusiness who have private security companies joining them for protect their properties. And so this is something that we are still facing until nowadays. Even this year, we have already very symbolic and well, some cases of violence and that.
I mean, I'm also curious, you know, when it comes to, obviously you're Brazil based, but we do see, I guess, farmers' protests happening in other parts of the world. In France right now, we had the farmers' protests in India, which has a lot to do with land. And so I'm just curious, like, do you see your organization as an internationalist one? I know you do, but can you talk a little about the sort of internationalist take on the world? Because obviously the idea of, you know, taking land for the people is something that transcends, you know, any one country.
Yes, of course. Land is a big issue all over the world. It's because it's like the, how can we say, the first source of wealth. It's where now the biggest disputes around the green solutions for the environmental crisis are being mentioned. No, land can provide a lot of assets from nature, minerals and things that are needed for technology. So if when MST starts, the biggest question was land in their improductive way, just like a source of power and of money. Now land it's in the center of the one who provides all these assets that the capitalism needs to continue. So we are seeing that now all over the world there are a lot of conflicts, even wars, that are based on the land issue because it's on places where land has a lot to provide. And uh, the ones who are taking care of those lands, the farmers, the peasants, the traditional communities, need to be moved from there. So they cannot be something who will stop the advance of the capitalist companies in the exploitation of land. So for us, it's not just a problem of Brazil or of Latin America. It's all over the world. In the African continent, we're seeing a lot of conflicts that has on his essential meaning the struggle for this research, this natural research, and of course the domination of territories and land. So that's why for MST, we believe that our struggle cannot be just in Brazil. Our struggle is international. So we receive a lot of support from other parts of the world, from a lot of peasant movements around the world. But for us, it's like essential in our political practice also to express our solidarity, also to support peasant movements and farmers, small farmers movements around the world. So we have a lot of brigades around the world with people of MST who are making exchanges with other comrades, and we are always in supporting of all those who are struggling in other parts of the world, like you mentioned in India. India is very symbolic for us because they really can mobilize millions of peasants, but also in other parts of the world, and of course also with all the situation in Palestine, we also believe it's in the center of all the genocide. It's this is the question of land. No, so for us, it's very important to have this international perspective of the struggle of the peasants.
Mm-hmm. And one final thing I just wanted to ask that I think is an important part of the discourse that MST is brought to this conversation of agriculture is agroecology. And I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the MST's approach to that.
Okay, so for us, like I was saying, it's not just a question of democratization of land. That's, of course, it's like the first step for us as a movement who struggles for land and for agrarian reform. But we really believe we need to have a different relation with the nature, with the researchers of nature, with the land. So we believe that we need to produce food, but not producing food in large scale farms with the use of pesticides and even with relations of exploitation among human beings. So for us, we need to change the way of producing land, and model of producing land for us, we give it the name of agroecology. It's on this agroecology. It's a scientific proposal, but also a live changing proposal for countryside, and especially for those who have any kind of relation with the production of food and of land. So agroecology, it's yes, producing food without doing no damage to environmental, but it's also to produce food having good and relations among human beings. It's doing it in a cooperative way. So it's not like individuals who are going to do their own agriculture. We truly believe that we need to do that in a cooperative way. It's also to strengthen the culture, the people's culture, and their ancestrality, their relation with nature, but also with all those who struggled before us. So for us, agroecology, it's somehow a way of living, not just a way of producing land, but a way of living that has all these dimensions of human development.
Mm-hmm. Ana Cha from the Landless Workers Movement of Brazil. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Freedom Side.
Thank you.